Hello and welcome to another episode of Metal Effort. My name's Nehemiah and today we're going to be checking out this piece of metal, the Ferrum Forge Archbishop 2.0. This is a Wii Knives produced knife, kind of the Wii version of a custom that Ferrum Forge used to make, the Archbishop Original 1.0. This is on loan from Nick Shabazz. Thank you, Nick, for lending this along. First thing let's do is a size comparison. We've got our PM2 and our Para 3. The Archbishop is a 3.4 inch blade. Cutting edge is about 3 inches. So a good medium-sized knife. It's a really decent size. I appreciate this kind of middle ground on a knife. It's kind of a jack of all trades, which is cool. Let's get a quick weigh-in on this guy. It's titanium, obviously, which compared to steel is lighter. It's not a super duper lightweight knife. I mean, 4.5-ish, definitely over an ounce an inch. But I think there's a lot that the knife is doing to kind of make its case. So hopefully it can. To figure that out, we'll get into the dent, the decent, the excellent, the nitpicks, and the terrible of this piece of metal. First off, in the decent is the options. There are many different cutout kind of designs. There's different anodization colors. Lots and lots and lots of options. So if this isn't really your cup of tea as far as the milling pattern, the holes, and the color, check your favorite retailer. There might be a version that you prefer more. I always like it when knife companies give us lots of options. Usually it's easy to find something that just feels a little bit more personal for you. Next decent thing is the blade shape. The blade shape is fantastically useful. So little tiny bit of flat, but a lot of belly and a decent point. Very good blade shape just for general all-purpose. The one thing about having the giant choil, usually I like having that finger choil choking up, but there are different kinds of cuts where it can be like a downside if it's too big here. If you're like cutting something and then the thing that you're cutting like slides into this area like a cardboard box or something. So you got to be more mindful when you have a knife like this. You can't just have the cardboard running along like the side of it, like on the finger choils the Spydercos have, got the little nub here that kind of keeps that material from coming down into the finger choil. Some people prefer this just into a finger choil, so you're getting more cutting edge. I think it's debatable. I see the merits in both kind of angles. I think they've never had that kind of thing on one of their designs before, so I think that'd be a little bit out of their design language to do so, but it is something to note. When it actually comes time to cut, you kind of have to be mindful of that. Speaking of the blade, I do like this stonewash finish. I wish that there were some satin options in all the different options of colors and milling patterns. All the blades are pretty much finished the same way, so I think this is good. It's incredibly practical, hides scratches really well, and depending on who you ask, it's attractive. But personally, I've always preferred just the normal satin look a little bit more than kind of this deep, dark stonewash. I like mirror stonewash, mirror polish or high polish, but this is just kind of drab, I guess. But I know objectively this is a good finish to have. It just helps out. Blade type is M390. As noted here, so that's basically the only thing on the blade, which again I'm always a fan of, keeping it nice and clean and simple, but still having the steel type, so that is not lost to time. Good job. The cutting performance on this is also pretty decent. The blade thickness, let's get an actual measurement in here. It's, I don't want to say it's super thick, but it's definitely not like a laser beam. All right, so we're coming at like 0.15-ish, which is a little bit more than I would like. In millimeters, we're looking at basically 4. So I prefer knives of this size to be more in the 3.5 millimeter, the 1.2, 1.3 inch, or 0.113. It's pretty well ground. It's not a bad cutter in the slightest, but if it was a little bit lighter, I think I would have liked it. Overall, the blade shape is just so good for it that it kind of makes up for the thickness a little bit. So ultimately, it ends up in the decent. Next decent thing is the pattern. So I think not only is this pretty attractive, I like the kind of angle and flow through design of the opening aperture is kind of mirrored here in this design, which is really aesthetically pleasing in my opinion. But more than anything, I like the weight reduction that this offers. Other than this milling, you don't have any internal milling. That's not a full flow through. So, this being 4.5 ounces, I can't imagine how bad it would be on the other designs. That's just a full slab. They're going to be kind of heavy. So if you're concerned about weight, definitely go for one of the ones that's more heavily milled out. I think that'll help the case. Next decent thing is the jimping. The jimping on this is actually really, really good. Some people I think are going to think it's a little too grabby, but I actually really enjoy just good grabby jimping. I feel like it is not going anywhere. This knife is a part of my hand. And, Vaseline factories, as Nick says, shouldn't be a problem for this knife in the slightest. Similar kind of big wide jimping on the back spacer. It's not as sharp. It doesn't actually grab as much as this does. But aesthetically, it kind of matches the motif. It looks like this is almost a gear that could slide into that, which is kind of cool. I like that design aesthetic too. The value on this is good. I think, so it's clocking in at $275, much less than the Archbishop 1.0s, the custom knives, obviously. So this is, the collaboration between production and custom is the perfect place to be, I think, where you get the awesome design, you get, the creative element from the maker, but you get the price, the execution, and the consistency from the production of a good company like we. And so ultimately, I think, M390, a solid, rock solid design for $270, $75 is very, very good. So not I'm not going to put it in the excellent. I know $275 is a lot of money to a lot of people, but ultimately I think it's a good value. Fit and finish on the sucker is really, really nice as well. Everything is dialed in. Now, I will say, for the fit and finish, just kind of full disclosure, Nick got to pick this out. Ferrum Forge is actually local to us, and I've been there a couple times. I know Nick has gone there. And so they had a bunch of these in the shop when he went to go pick one out. So he got to kind of manhandle all of them, and he picked his favorite one. So we know for a fact that this was cherry picked because Nick cherry picked it. So I don't know how many are not up to this level. I know that Nick was saying that most of them were pretty good. So I don't think it's a unicorn per se to have something this well done. And we know the track record of Wii knives. They're not putting out, doo-doos. Now let's get into the excellent. I've got the OCD to talk about, the open, the close, and the disengage. So open has got two different ways to open the knife. You got the flipper tab and you have the opening aperture. So let's take them one at a time. Flipper tab is incredibly well placed. It's right where your finger kind of wants to sit, and it's kind of in between the shelf kind of position and the kind of push button position. That's right, kind of splitting the difference. So, it gives you some really good purchase. It's not easy to slip off, and the detent on this knife is perfect. I mean, perfect. I would not adjust the detent any harder or softer. It is exactly where it needs to be. And for the opening aperture, now I watched Nick's review, and I think I remember him trying to do it with his pointer finger, and he was having problems with that. I think he got it open, but it was a little bit awkward for him. Just use your middle finger, guys, and it should rock it out like a brick. I mean, just pow. Really, really easy. In fact, this is one of my favorite knives to Spidey flick. It's just that detent is so good. And when you're putting pressure on the blade, sometimes when you put pressure on the blade from the opening aperture side, it kind of bends the knife just ever so slightly and makes the detent too strong. That's why when knives are tuned for the opening aperture, usually that means they're overall a weaker detent than if it was tuned for the flipper tab, because they're kind of pinching the knife shut. But here, that's not the issue, and the knife just, boom, rockets open. I mean, zero wrist, knife is totally still, and it's just caca. I love fidgeting with this knife. Both are satisfying, both sound great, look cool. On the disengage, you have really good access. So from the side, presentation side, you can barely see this little chamfer right here on the lock bar. And so that does facilitate coming in horizontally, which I always appreciate. And they're not doing any crazy jimping or anything like that. It's really easy access. You do have a steel lock bar insert that's very well hidden in there. Can't really tell on the outside other than the obvious screw that it's giving you some kind of clue. It's also the over travel stop, but there's no lock stick from that steel insert, and the detent ball wants to hop up onto the blade extremely early on. So it's, with that flipper tab, it's really easy to just boom, and then now it's exactly precisely one jostle and it closes perfectly. So the disengage is awesome. The close is equally awesome. So much so that if you do it too hard, it actually bounces back out of the detent. So you don't need to do much. I mean, it's like a very smooth, light jostle to get the job done, and it closes right up. So all three, well, really all four, because you have two different opens. So flipper tab open, the Spidey flick open, the disengage, and the drop shut are all excellent. I was blown away. This knife was not on my radar. I didn't think it was ugly or anything like that, but I was like, I've seen some Ferrum Forge knives. I kind of know what they are. They all seem the same. The Buck or all the mass drop knives, the Fortis 2.0, like all of them just seem the same, but this by far is the best in terms of action. It gets up on that detent. The detent gets on the tang of the blade right away. And the entire gauntlet is just easy peasy to do and really enjoyable. I can't overstate how much I like this. Next excellent thing is the ergonomics. And I really like the ergonomics here. Both grips are really, really, really comfortable. I like the detailed work, kind of position of getting close to the blade. That jimping is awesome. Your pinch grip is awesome. And it fits in the hand well. It doesn't fill it too much, doesn't fill it too little. No hot spots off the knife whatsoever. Both positions are equally comfortable. Really nice. Really, really nice ergos. I don't think they beat the all-time greats like the Koenig Arius or anything like that, but definitely in the top 90 percentile. I think it's really, really good. I do have a couple nitpicks on the knife. First one is on the clip. And this is something I've noticed from a lot of Ferrum Forge knives. I just kind of disagree with the clip placement. I think the idea here is that they're putting it off to the side to keep it off of the lock bar, which does mess with the action sometimes. I know that's kind of been a long time quibble with the Sebenza 21, and the Sebenza 31 was just announced, and that was one of the changes they made, is having the clip kind of canter off to the side, so it's making contact on the actual main frame instead of on the lock bar to kind of ease up on that pressure. I don't have a problem with that. I think they could have gone even further. Just take this clip and move it this way, so it's even longer. Maybe let's use this. All right, so have it start right here and then go all the way to the same point. And why do I care? Because this is really not that deep carry. It's a big old chunk kind of just sticking out, and you've got nothing going on right here. Normally this is where an annoying lanyard hole would be, but it's not. So why not just move that up, make the clip longer, and you could still make the same exact contact point, not on the lock bar. And sure, it'd be to the angle, but when it sits in your pocket, like, that's not going to be an issue. If anything, it's going to canter the knife even more in. So, I don't know. It's not bad. This isn't, like, terrible. It's just, like, this part of the knife is just staring at me. Like, why does the clip not live there? I don't know. Not a big deal, though. It's fine. Now, this is kind of a nitpick and a positive, I suppose, or a neutral, I guess. So, the clip is actually reversible. At first, it doesn't really look like it, but there's this big, long pin that goes into the backspacer right here, and then there's a blank hole. So, ideally, if you're left-handed, you can take this out, take these out, and flip it, and use this hole for this second bottom screw on the clip. It's reversible. That's awesome. Okay, so that's good. The nitpick is not that I don't want lefties to put it in the correct pocket, but my nitpick is this: you have this just blank open screw there, and I think a lot of people wouldn't even know that's what it's for unless somebody told you. Otherwise, it just looks like you have a missing screw, I guess. The nittiest of nitpicks, but it just, I keep looking at it, and I want to put a fake screw in there to make it not stare at me. Next nitpick is the aforementioned weight. Even with the cutout version, 4.5 ounces is a bit much when you only have 3 inches of cutting blade, 3.5 total. I don't think it's too bad. Anything under 5 ounces, and I just pretty much don't care. I'm not like that nitpicky or crazy about it being a 1-to-1 ratio on ounces to inches. And I know that when knives get bigger, it's harder to achieve that. So overall, I think it's fine because you can pick the versions that help with the weight, and then the contouring ones that have just a full slab, I would imagine, are even more heavy, but maybe they are more comfortable. So I really want to get my hands on one of those just contoured handled ones to see if it's so comfortable that it might even be worth just making the knife even heavier. But I kind of wish there was some more internal milling to help out with that. I think they could have pushed it a little bit further, maybe got to the 4 ounce mark, would have been cool. Another last nitpick, and this I already mentioned, is just the satin finish or something else. Just this is the only finish that you have, and I kind of wish there was other options. We know WE is capable of some really awesome like bead blast satin finishes, and I think that would look incredible on this knife. That would be so good. For the terrible, I don't have anything, so let's get right into the conclusion. My conclusion is I'm probably going to buy this knife, not this exact knife, but I know Nick wants it back, but I'm gonna be in the market. I think I want to get one of them. I don't know which one I want to do. Like I said, I kind of want to try the contoured one, but I'm a little worried about the weight. I think this is definitely a knife that's worth being in your collection. For cutting, covers pretty much all the tasks. You've got good ergos, amazing action, and aesthetically, I think it's pleasing to the eye. It's not, the best looking knife ever, but that's not necessarily even a base requirement at all. So I think I can highly recommend this knife to just about anybody that has the budget for it. I hope this was helpful to you. I'll catch you in my next video. Bye!